Good afternoon. We're here today to announce our decision in our search for Fresno's next Chief of Police. Oh, start that over again. Good afternoon. We're here today to announce our decision in the search for Fresno's next Chief of Police. It fulfills the promise I made to voters. I want to thank everyone that was involved in the search process, from the City Manager, Wilma Kwan, incoming City Manager, Tommy Esqueda, Personnel Director, Jeff Cardale, and my Chief of Staff, Tim Orman, to the men and women who graciously agreed to be part of the interview panels, many of whom are with us on Zoom today. It's an accomplished and diverse collection of community leaders that has helped us in our interview process, and I appreciate their commitment to finding the best candidate possible. I also want to thank all the candidates who applied from all across the nation for this important job. The collective excellence of that group made this decision more challenging than ever. And to the residents of Fresno who participated in public discussions, community meetings, and surveys, I thank you most of all. Your suggestions, your concerns, your hopes were heard loud and clear. It's been clear from the start that Fresno wants a chief who can make changes, build trust, and increase safety for all of our residents. As I've said many times, the selection of our next police chief will be the single most important decision that we make. This decision impacts every person in Fresno. Mayor-elect Dyer and City Manager Kwan both agreed that the person we choose will take ownership of the position and make an immediate impact on our community. With that, it is my pleasure to officially introduce our next Chief of Police, Juan F. Balderrama. Chief, please stand up behind me, please. Deputy Police Chief Balderrama, better known as Paco, is a 21-year veteran of the Oklahoma City Police Department, where he became the first Hispanic deputy police chief in the department's history. Chief Balderrama will officially be sworn in on January 11th and become the first Hispanic police chief in Fresno's history. Before we bring him up to speak, I want to say a few words about Mayor-elect Jerry Dyer, whose vast experience and expert opinions were crucial in this decision, and we worked together every step of the way to find the leader that we both wanted. Jerry has led the Fresno PD for 18 years with distinction, and I'm confident that as mayor, he will bring unity and prosperity to our great city. I'd like Mayor-elect Dyer to share his thoughts.
Thank you very much, Mayor. It's my honor to be able to be here today for perhaps the most important appointment that is made during my administration. And I believe that to be very true, especially in today's policing environment. You know, I had the opportunity to be a part of the interview process for the selection of the police chief. And I want to tell you the candidate which was selected, Paco Balderrama, his thought process, his comprehensive response to some very complex scenarios was not only impressive, but I believe mirrored that of a veteran major city chief in this country. Paco was very well versed on policing strategies to include how to combat gangs, diverting youth away from criminal activity and being a part of gangs. Also, how to build community trust, communicating through the media, budgetary issues, and perhaps one of the most visible today, police accountability. During my time as a chief, I've had the privilege of interacting with police chiefs, assistant chiefs, and deputy chiefs from across this country. And I have gotten to see firsthand what great police chiefs look like. And I've gotten to see firsthand what it takes to lead a police department in today's environment. Paco Balderrama has what it takes to be a great police chief, and he also has what it takes to lead in these turbulent times. He is experienced, He's talented. And I believe we as a city are very, very fortunate to have Paco here in Fresno. Paco understands what it takes to keep a community safe. He knows how to balance enforcement, prevention, and intervention. And just as important, Paco knows how to earn the trust of the community as well as the department members. In today's environment of social unrest and police scrutiny and criticism, that is a quality that is very much needed to be able to balance and maintain that trust of department members as well as the community. You know, I had the opportunity to speak with Paco's former police chief, Chief William City of the Oklahoma City Police Department. I was acquainted with Chief City with my time on Major City Chiefs. And so as part of our due diligence in the background process, I reached out to Chief City and listened to what he had to say about Paco. Chief City said that Paco is the real deal. What you see is what you get. He is sincere, honest, hardworking, and a tremendous communicator and extremely loyal. He said Paco has a wide breadth of experience and has thrived at every level of the organization. Paco sets high standards for himself, works long hours, and when he makes a mistake, he's the first one to admit it. Chief City said that he groomed Paco to be the next police chief for the city of Oklahoma and had placed him in a variety of assignments along the way in order to prepare him for that role. The chief said that in every assignment that Paco was placed, he excelled beyond the chief's expectations. Paco was handpicked by Chief City to serve as the department's public information officer at 2 different ranks, which is very uncommon in law enforcement. Chief City said he placed Paco in that role the second time selfishly due to Paco's skill set in dealing with the media, even though it would have been more advantageous for Paco to gain additional experience in another assignment. Chief City assured me, I doubt if you will be able to find anyone else as good with the media as Paco is. Paco is also fluent in Spanish and connects well with the Latino audience. Chief City did share that with me, that he tried to discourage Paco from applying for a police chief's job with another department or city, with the exception of Fresno. The chief told Paco that he felt that the police department in Fresno would be a good fit for him based on what he knew about the community as well as the law enforcement agency. Much of that Chief City had learned over the years through my conversations at Major City Chiefs. As a result, it's my understanding that this is the only police department that Paco applied for as a police chief. The chief said Paco was deeply loved by the leadership of the African-American community and was, in his words, a rock star in the Latino community in Oklahoma. The chief felt Paco would serve the Fresno community very well as a police chief, especially in today's policing environment. Paco's resume is also very, very impressive. He has a Bachelor of Science degree in Criminal Justice Management. He has a Master's of Arts in Criminal Justice Administration. And Paco is a graduate of the FBI's National Academy. He's also been highly decorated. He was chosen by the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce as the outstanding community leader. He was determined to be one of 12 most influential Hispanics in the entire state of Oklahoma. He received the President's Award from the Latino Community Development Agency, and he was the first Hispanic major and deputy chief in the history of the Oklahoma City Police Department. And as was previously mentioned by Mayor Brand, Paco will serve as the first Hispanic police chief in the history of the Fresno Police Department. I want to close with saying this. You know, I was fortunate to serve as a police chief in the city of Fresno for 18 years. And I got to work with some extremely talented and individuals within the Fresno Police Department at all ranks. I can speak firsthand to their strengths, their personalities, their commitment, and their heart for this city. And I am absolutely confident, based on my interactions with Paco over the last few weeks, that he will fit in well at the Fresno Police Department at every level of the organization. I'm also very confident that within a short period of time, Paco will be welcomed with open arms and embraced by this community. I have complete confidence in Paco's abilities and have given him my full support as the mayor of this city. I'm asking for all of us in this community to do the same, to give our full support to Paco Valderrama as our next police chief, and to support him in his efforts to lead this city. There will be challenges ahead for Paco with the recent uptick in violent crime in the city, a very weakened criminal justice system, implementation of the recommendations, 73 recommendations brought forth by the Commission on Police Reform, policing in the midst of COVID, getting familiar with a new community and a new police department. All of those will be challenges for Paco, but I'm extremely confident in the abilities of Chief Valderrama. I believe he's up to these challenges, and he will be absolutely supported by the men and women of the Fresno Police Department. So with that, I'm going to bring up Lee Brand again.
Thank you, Jerry. And now let me show my great appreciation for our police chief, Andy Hall. He has done an incredible job. Oh, these masks, these pesky masks. And thank you, Jerry. And now let me show my great appreciation for Police Chief Andy Hall. He has done an incredible job under the most challenging circumstances. Handling a surge in violence during an ever-changing pandemic, it was not what he signed up for, but he never complained and he never wavered in his commitment to his community and to his department. Chief Hall has performed excellently and has always been a man of integrity and purpose. So Andy, please share a few thoughts about your time as chief and about the man that will be your successor next month.
You're immune. Well, good afternoon. My name is Chief Andrew Hall with the Fresno Police Department, current chief of police. And I'll be honest with you, I can't believe this day has finally come. You know, when I agreed to serve as the chief of police for Mayor Brandon, City Manager Kwan, it was with the understanding that Mayor Brand would appoint my replacement before the end of his term. And I would like to thank Mayor Brand for honoring this commitment to both the community, myself, and my family. However, had I known back then what would have occurred in the year to come, I may have given you a different answer. You know, it's been my pleasure working under the leadership of Mayor Brand and City Manager Wilma Kwan. They are both people of high moral character, honesty, and integrity, and it has been a pleasure serving under your leadership. It's been a privilege to serve this community for over 40 years and an honor to lead this agency as the chief of police. I want to thank the mayor and city manager for giving me this opportunity. Now, I'm now at the end of my journey, and I'm excited to turn over the reins of this amazing police department to our next chief of police, Paco Valderrama. Chief Valderrama is a person of high integrity and exceptional moral values. I haven't known him very long, but I agree with Mayor-elect Dyer that he's a person that you get what you see and you see what you get. I think the Paco will fit in great with the police department, as Mayor-elect Dyer said. I believe he'll be embraced by not only our department, but by the community that will embrace him and his leadership style. I want to commit to you, Paco, that I will do everything in my power to ensure a smooth transition of leadership, and I will always be a resource to you. I'm excited to watch this agency grow into your command. I'd like to turn it back over to the mayor.
Thank you again, Andy. You've done the uniform, the department, and the city of Fresno proud. And finally, let's hear from our next chief of police himself, and I'll go over briefly on his resume. Chief Balderrama previously served in the Oklahoma City Police Department as Public Information Officer, Commander of Property Crimes Unit, Bilingual Unit Commander, Community Outreach Coordinator, and Police Liaison to the Hispanic community. Most recently, Chief Balderrama was appointed to the Criminal Justice Reform Task Force. He is currently serving as Deputy Chief over the Special Operations Bureau, which consists of Emergency Response Team, Crisis Intervention Team, Homeless Outreach Team, Community Relations, SWAT Tactical Team, Criminal Intelligence Unit, and Oklahoma City Police Athletic League. That's a lot. He is fluent in Spanish and holds a master's degree in criminal justice administration from the University of Central Oklahoma. It's an impressive resume, but he's even more impressive in person. During his interview in my panel, he knocked it out of the park. One of the best interviews I've ever sat on. He had strong competition, but he was clearly the top candidate. Most of all, he will inspire people and help bring unity to the city of Fresno. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Paco Balderrama as Fresno's next chief of police. Paco.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here to cover this event. First and foremost, I want to thank God for giving me this opportunity and for always placing me in positions where I could help the community and I could better myself. Secondly, I want to thank my immediate family, but especially my wife for her love and support throughout this whole process. I want to thank my children. Obviously, it's going to be a sacrifice for them, the fact that I need to uproot them and literally move them across the country, but they're excited about that too. And I want to thank my mother and my brother, who have always been my inspiration and will continue to be that. There's a group of very important people to me here in the Fresno community, and it's law enforcement professionals who were very influential in encouraging me to take this job. So you know who you are. I won't name you, so I won't embarrass you, but thank you for being there for me. This thing's been a whirlwind, and it's been a little bit difficult, a little bit challenging, but I do want to thank the city leadership, outgoing and incoming. Mayor Brand, thank you very much. You were a complete gentleman. As I was going through the interview process, it was long, it was arduous, but you were very open and kind to me, and I appreciate that. City Manager Kwan, thank you for being so supportive and so welcoming. Thank you for your phone calls and helping me along the way. Mayor-elect Dyer, sir, thank you very much for believing in me to run this police department. I promise you, and I promise the citizens, and I promise the members of this police department that I'm not going to let you down. And Chief Hall, sir, you've been a gentleman throughout this entire thing. You've been encouraging. You've given me the time of day. You've answered my questions, and I know that you're going to be around to help me out. So I appreciate you as well. Our new assistant or city manager, Tommy Esqueda, is not here today, but he and I have communicated various times, and he's been great as well. So I do also want to thank the community selection panel. There were several individuals on that panel, pastors, community leaders, community advocates, city council members, and other law enforcement professionals. It was a long panel, and you guys gave up your day and your time, but obviously it shows that this is very, very important to you and very important to the community. So thank you for doing that. And finally, I want to thank Oklahoma City. I want to thank the city that's been my home for the last 27 years. I want to thank the people, the community, the leadership, the men and women of the Oklahoma City Police Department. I have been an Oklahoma City police officer for half of my life, 22 years out of 44. And I'm going to miss you, but I've worked as hard as I could every single day to make that community better. And now I have a great opportunity that I'm very, very excited for. My mentors, Chief Dyer mentioned Chief Bill City. Nobody makes it this far by themselves. It's always the help of others. And I know I certainly haven't made it this far by myself. It's been a lot of people giving me encouragement and good advice. So I'm very excited about that. All I can say is that I'm very, very excited, and I'm very, very humble to be here. In all of my steps throughout my career, I don't know anybody else's experience, but my experience is that the higher you go, the smaller you feel. And you feel this small because you feel the pressure of the responsibility, and the people's lives that are affected by your decisions. And that's something that I take very, very seriously. And but I look forward to taking on this new challenge and this new responsibility. I do look forward in my first few months as police chief. I look forward to meeting personally every police officer, man and woman of this police department, every civilian personnel who play a very, very critical and important role in this police department. I look forward to meeting with them, sitting down and getting to know their thoughts and ideas. I also look forward to meeting the city's leadership, not just in city government, but the private sector, and obviously our law enforcement personnel, such as the county sheriff, the county district attorneys, the county district attorney, and other leaders. So, but I think most importantly, I'm excited about meeting the members of this community. I'm excited to listen to what you have to say, to your thoughts, to your ideas, to your experiences. And I'm really going to use that in order to really determine what this community needs from this police department to make this a better place to live. Fresno, as Mayor-elect Dyer said, is not unlike any other large city. We're experiencing a lot. 2020 has been a year truly like no other. Violent crime is up. You know, there's been obviously a lack of trust and confidence in law enforcement in general, mainly because of things that have happened in other parts of the country, but they affect us here as well. So we have to deal with that. You know, obviously the lack of resources and opportunity for young people has also been an issue. And all of these things coupled by COVID, which has created a great deal of frustration, budget shortfalls, and things like that. But I will say this is that the problems and the challenges that I have made, they're not just the police departments. They're the entire communities. And I think with a vision and with a resolve of the idea of one Fresno, I think we can come together and work as a team and come up with new solutions for many of these problems. The last thing I'd like to say without really getting into a whole lot of details, because obviously I haven't been here, you know, I haven't moved here. My first day will be January 11th. And I very much look forward to that day. But, you know, I will have various priorities that I will set forth as police chief, but I can really just identify them in two simple terms, you know, community trust and community safety. Those are the two main things that I'm going to focus on, and everything else is going to revolve around them. And these are big challenges, although they're stated very simply. But I really think that through professionalism, accountability, transparency, and community engagement, we can get those things done. So I'm very happy to be here. I thank you, Fresno community, for welcoming me. Everyone's been very kind, and I can't wait to start. Thank you.
We're all thrilled to welcome Paco, his wife Kyla, and his 3 children to Fresno. And we know he is ready to lead our men and women in blue with grace and humility. And with that, we'll take questions.
Hello, this is Medeiros from KC24 and CBS 47. This question is for Paco. Welcome aboard as well. But I just wanted to ask you about the 73 recommendations from the Police Commission. Obviously, Fresno had one of the largest peaceful protests after the incident with George Floyd, which led to the commission talking about what could be done better in the department. With the over 70 recommendations, have you taken a look at them? And what are your thoughts on them, especially on some of the more controversial ones, like removing student officers from student campuses and not having officers respond to homeless or domestic violence calls?
Thank you for your question. And yes, I'm very familiar with the 73 recommendations. I'm reading through them right now in detail, but I've followed the commission and I've listened to a lot of their meetings. some live and some on YouTube. So I'm very much looking forward to sitting down with the committee, and I know we're going to do so as the leadership of the city in order to talk about, how many of these we can implement, a timeline for implementation. I can't say a whole lot because that is still being reviewed, but I think a lot of those make a lot of sense. Many of those recommendations are common sense recommendations, and they're national standards. And I think we should implement some of those. Others are a little bit more technical because of legal reasons. So obviously we have to get with our legal team and figure those out. But the commission, obviously we owe them a great deal of gratitude, because some of those meetings were very long and very complex, but it shows that community or that those individuals on that commission really care about changing the future of Fresno and specifically the police department. After 2020, I don't think police work as we have known it will ever be exactly the same as it used to be. So I do anticipate some changes. I do anticipate sitting down and getting to meet some of the people on that commission, and to working with them to make this community safer and to make the police department better. Thank you.
Hi, Chief Balderrama. Dale You're here from ABC 30. First of all, welcome to Fresno. I had a question about your philosophy. I mean, we've seen so many protests and demonstrations across the U.S. from OKC to Fresno. Certainly, we have seen you on the front lines in Oklahoma City there. The question is, what's the key to finding that right balance between law and order and social justice?
Well, that's a complicated thing, and I think it's a little bit different for different parts of the country. Oklahoma City and Fresno are very similar, but there are some differences. But I think the key is listening. I think the key is to listen to the people who have thoughts, they have ideas, they have points of view, and obviously it's important to get their point of view. The balance obviously is going to be somewhere in the middle, and as I just said a few moments ago, I don't think police work is going to be the same. And I think for too many years we've relied too much on police. We've given police officers tasks that really they had no business doing, but there was nobody else to call, so you call the police department, and that has grown to something that really shouldn't be. Most police departments are understaffed. The budget is very, very thin. There's not a whole lot of room for growth, but yet we have a record number of 911 calls for different things like homelessness. So I think, I think the answer is sitting down with some of our resources from the community. And this should not be just a police department problem. This is a Fresno problem. So let's get the right people involved so we can come up with a better way of serving the community. And let's identify those types of calls that really police officers have no business taking. And maybe there's a better way of doing it. Maybe we can have professionals in other areas, such as, social workers or mental health professionals or people that can deal with the complex social issues of homelessness instead of a police officer. Perhaps by doing that, we can lessen the load on the police department, but yet we can accomplish a lot of good for the people that call 911 and still need services.
Buenas tardes, señor Villarreal. ¿Puede decir unas palabras en español para la comunidad latina aquí en Fresno, que son como 50% de la población?
Claro que sí, en Oklahoma City es aproximadamente el 18%. Entonces, obviamente estoy muy emocionado y es un día muy importante, no solamente para mí, pero para la comunidad hispana. Yo no sabía que yo iba a ser el primer jefe de policía hispano. Entonces, esas noticias salieron ya después, pero obviamente es algo muy importante, no solamente para mí, para mi familia, pero también para el departamento, para esos niños, esos jóvenes que puedan ellos también ver que ellos pueden hacer algo grande aquí aquí en este estado, en esta ciudad. Entonces, para mí es realmente lo que me ha resultado muy positivo en Oklahoma City es la relación con la comunidad hispana. Entonces, yo he estado muy involucrado, obviamente porque hablo español, pero también porque la gente me importa a mí. Y es lo que van a ver aquí también con ahora que voy a comenzar de jefe en enero. Me van a ver a mí mucho. Vamos a tener ese diálogo, vamos a comunicar. Entonces, yo quiero que las cosas mejoren para toda persona, pero también especialmente para los hispanos aquí en la comunidad de Fresno.
Hello, this is Libertad Pedraza with Univision in Fresno, and I also gonna ask you a few questions in Spanish, if that's okay with you.
Yes.
Me gustaría que me hablara un poco sobre, aquí como comentaban, hay una gran población hispana y igualmente como cualquier minoría se sienten un poco dejados de lado por las autoridades en múltiples escenarios. Me gustaría saber cuál es su plan para incluir a la comunidad hispana ahora como jefe de policía.
Bueno, yo tengo la filosofía que el departamento de policía debe de ser igual a la comunidad. Entonces, si el 50-60% de la comunidad son hispanos, entonces el 50 o 60% del departamento de policía debe de ser hispano también. Entonces, esa comunicación es muy importante. Obviamente hay asuntos de inmigración y lo que puedo decir es que un departamento de policía del estatus de Fresno tiene que trabajar con estos compañeros federales, pero lo que no vamos a hacer es que no nos vamos a enfocar en enforzando las leyes migratorias. Realmente yo nunca he creído que ese es el trabajo de un policía. Si hay una persona que es violenta, que tiene una orden de arresto, que está dañando a la gente aquí en la comunidad, obviamente es una persona que debemos de arrestar y sacarlos de la comunidad para que no sigan dañando a la comunidad. Pero nosotros no vamos a hacer nada negativo como perder esa confianza que tiene la comunidad al departamento de policía. Entonces, mi mensaje es que este departamento es su departamento, no solamente de las otras razas, también es el departamento de policía de los hispanos aquí en Fresno, y eso es lo que va a seguir haciendo. ¿Otra pregunta?
Chief Select Balderrama, this is David Taub with GV Wire. Welcome to Fresno.
Thank you very much.
What significance for you is it to be the first Latino police chief in Fresno's history?
Well, I actually didn't know that until here recently. So it wasn't something that was a focus of mine. I've just tried to be the best police chief I can. And I've been a deputy chief for Oklahoma City for the last 2 years. So I try to be the best person I can, the best professional that I can. And if I happen to be a Latino, well, that's good. That's good for the Latino community. So, but you're right. I mean, I don't want to downplay it. It is a big deal. It's a big deal. I had no idea because, I knew that the population in Fresno was the Hispanic population was so much higher. So I just assumed that there had been at some point a Hispanic police chief, but it is a great honor. It's a great responsibility. My last name is not my last name. It's one that I borrowed from my mom. And, my job is to keep that name untarnished and to give it honor so I can pass it on to my children. So, I compare that to also being Latino, and it's not, I am who I am, but I also represent not just my family. I represent the Hispanic community. And that's something that I take very, very seriously. And it's humbling to me. I just got to do the best job that I can every day and to do the right thing. And that's what I'm going to do.
Julia Dudley Najee, On Me News. Congratulations, Chief, on your newly appointed position. What an honor. Thank you. I know that the city where you come from, when you look at the amount of time you've served in Oklahoma City, the very place for Tulsa, Oklahoma, for African Americans is certainly historical and just 2 hours away. And then at the same time, we recently, unfortunately, was caught on video, a lady from Oklahoma City who went up to Black neighbors and unfortunately mischaracterized them. And this is in California, Contra Costa County, lady from Oklahoma City, and waving a stun gun in front of this Black family. And as we're looking across the United States at African Americans and looking at that relationship with police officers, how will you make it different for Fresno residents, African American residents, who must endure not only the pain, but the fear of running into a police officer and afraid of what to say, and at the same time wanting to make sure they are treated fairly. How will you be able to manage that in our great city of Fresno? Thank you.
Well, I believe in holding people accountable, and that the same thing that goes for me goes for every police officer that serves the city of Fresno. As police officers, we are public servants, and we work for the community, the entire community, the African American community, the Hmong community, the Asian community, the Hispanic community, the white community, everybody. So it is very sad to me. Some of the stories that I've heard about the fear, because a lot of people that don't believe that it's there, they will downplay it, and they'll say, look, statistically speaking, the chances of you being shot by a police officer or get into a confrontation with a police officer are very low, and they might be. That is true. Those chances are very low, but it doesn't change the fear that is very real. And for a African American parents to have the talk with their kids about, hey, if you get pulled over, make sure you don't do blank, because they're literally afraid that something's going to happen to their child. I mean, it's very sad. It shouldn't be that way, and it is. So I think community engagement is very, very important. And I think as we move forward with some of these criminal justice reforms, changing the way we do things, increasing community engagement, maybe not focusing so much on certain crimes that or calls that are not crime related, maybe we can change that way. But I think it's going to take a lot of education. I think it's going to take a lot of engagement. It's not something that we're going to do overnight. If it's something that I can lessen in my entire career here, I think that's a good goal to have. But it's also going to take teamwork. This is not something that the police department's going to come up with a solution and implement it in 6 months. It's going to go away. No, it's going to take time. It's going to take healing. But I think if there's anything good that's happened, in 2020, it's been the conversations that have been started, the conversations about race, the conversations about equality, the conversations about just how we police. I think those are all good conversations, and they're conversations that maybe we tap dance around before. Well, now it's here. And there's several recommendations by the commission, and I think those are going to help alleviate that. But I don't have an easy answer for that, but I do acknowledge that it's something that's very, very important, and that it's going to take a lot of work, but we're certainly going to try to do that.
Next question will be the last question.
This is Thaddeus Miller with the Fresno Bee. My question is, when was the last time the city went outside of the department to hire a chief? And how did that factor in? Was it on purpose, or how did that go?
Well, I happened to be in the department when the other two outside police chiefs were selected. George K. Hansen, which would have been in the early 80s, individual that came to our department, did some remarkable things in terms of community policing. And then the other one would have been Joe Samuels, who would have been in the early 90s. He came to the city of Fresno from Oakland, and spent 2 years here prior to going back to the city of Oakland, or actually another department, to become a chief. In both of those instances, I believe the department learned some things from the outside that perhaps were overlooked in the past. And I'm very, very confident that Paco is going to bring some ideas, a new vision, a new set of priorities to the organization. And I am very, very confident that in each of those ideas, it's going to make us a better department. It's going to make us a better community, a safer community, a community that trusts its police department more. So I do believe on occasion, it is good to bring in a fresh set of eyes. And we have those fresh set of eyes with Paco Balderrama.
Hello, just a question again, Medeiros with KC24. How many finalists were there, and what was the choice to get someone from out of state besides within the department? And what will that transition look like in terms of Andy Hall and Paco working together before he actually takes over?
Yeah, in terms of the number of finalists, we had considerable interest in the position of police chief from across the country. And there was a community panels that were established. Those interviews occurred over Zoom. And it was to narrow the candidate pool down to the top three. There were three candidates, one from the state of Texas, one from the state of Oklahoma, which is Paco Valderrama, and also one internal candidate. I will tell you that all three of those individuals are outstanding, and we could not have gone wrong with the selection of any of them. And in terms of, in terms of the final panel and the selection process, it was, although I believe that Paco stood out in terms of his responses, in terms of his demeanor and his presence. Again, we also had some very good candidates to interview. And you had a second part of that, Maderos, I believe. Oh, the transition with Chief Hall. Paco is going to start as a police chief January 11th. He is currently already in the process of obtaining his post certification from the state of California. We'll have that prior to January 11th. And he has also been working with Chief Hall now and will continue over the next month. But Andy's last day, Chief Hall's last day as a police chief will be January 15th. So they'll have that entire week to transition. And then, as you know, we have some very, very competent deputy chiefs in the police department that Paco will be working closely with as part of that transition as well. We're told there's one more question.
Yes. Hi, Mr. Balderrama. This is Jim Jacobs with GV Wire also. I lived in Oklahoma City for 3 years before coming here to Fresno, so I kind of have done what you're doing now. I know that in Oklahoma City schools, I kind of wanted to go back to what Maderos was asking originally, one of the questions with regards to officers in schools. There are full-time Oklahoma City officers within schools there. One of the recommendations is that might not be the case here in Fresno moving forward. What are your thoughts specifically on officers at schools? What is your philosophy on that? One side of the coin would say that it's good to have the officers there so that the youth get access to them and exposed to them early and in a non-confrontational setting, whereas others think that there might be a different way to do that. What is your philosophy?
Well, my philosophy and what we've done in Oklahoma City is that those school resource officers are inside the schools, number one, because the schools want them there. They pay for a percentage of their salaries while they're at the schools, and that's a request by the school district. Number two, I really want to focus on their mission. Their mission inside the school is twofold. Number one, it's to increase trust and communication between police officers and youth. Number one. Number two is to keep the school safe. Obviously we've had, in the past in this country, we've had mass shooting situations, and some of them have been in schools. School safety is kind of a big deal, and keeping guns out of schools and keeping gangs out of schools. So obviously a good tool for that is to have a police officer there. But a police officer's mission should not be, to arrest on petty crimes or to mass arrest kids inside the school. Their main priority should be to build trust, and secondly, to keep the kids safe, the students safe. So that's my philosophy on it. Not that that's something that may not change. It really depends on what the schools want. It depends on what the community wants. So maybe that can look a little bit different. So maybe those school resource officers can be officers that check on the kids who have trauma, check on the kids who need certain services from the community, make sure that the kids are going to school. So maybe we can evolve that into something that is more of a student services and immediate needs, as opposed to just a cop in the school. So I think it can be very beneficial, but I think ultimately it's going to depend on what the schools want, what the community wants.
That should do it. Thank you.